Good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon, frankly, whenever you're watching this, and welcome to another episode of Beside the Gavel. This is actually a very, well, I'd say a risky episode. I have a guest here who I have intentionally not had on the entire time of this show, but he is sadly leaving our board. And why I say this is risky is he's the host of another show here on LMTV, a show that really has struggled. We've seen telethons trying to save the show. We've seen guests trying to save the show, but with a certain host, it's hard to do so. So my hope is that having him on Beside the Gavel doesn't tank this show as well. But it is one episode. He is leaving the board, and I'm very happy to have with me Commissioner Mike McKeon. So Mike, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. I think the key really word here is risk, or risky, what you were saying. I mean, we have no script today. We have rival TV shows that we often don't get along, and who knows who's going to try to hijack or commandeer the line of questioning. So having said that, I'd like to begin the show with a gift here from the Public Works Pipeline. As you know, the Public Works, we care about leaves and tree bags.
Is that a show?
It's one of the most popular shows on Lower Merion television.
Wow.
An autographed Public Works leaf bag. It says, "Nothing's finer than being in your diner," because I know you have some diners in Villanova. Mike McKeon, Ward 3.
Wow.
So please, when you're cleaning up trash, think of the Public Works Pipeline and think of me.
I will. Every time I think of trash,
Yeah.
I will think of you. Thank you. That was very kind of you. I think the host is supposed to give the gifts, but I will gladly accept
Well,
this.
if you've got gifts for me later on, or something you find in the studio, just let me know.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
But I do actually want to talk about some relatively serious stuff. You and I, back in May, we hosted the Memorial Day Parade. We were the two commentators, and I think it was a record-breaking show. And so I think there's an opportunity for this not to be one of your worst performances. So I think everyone here would appreciate that.
I'd love to return to do the Memorial Day telecast next year. I won't be on the Board of Commissioners then, and if I'm not in jail at the time or something, it'd be nice to go and do that if I was permitted back.
That would be pretty wonderful.
Yeah.
And you talked about a rivalry, and we've obviously joked around about having this rivalry. For those who don't know, this show is recorded and shown over and over. And very recently, I'll break that fourth wall, and let people know this is a rivalry like that game that we just recently saw with the Phillies Diamondbacks, where it was 10-0 Phillies. So you can call it a rivalry if you want, but we'll just leave it at that. But Mike, you've been on the board for what, 6 years? Right?
Yeah, it'd be almost 6 years. So you got on the board the legitimate way. There was an election. As far as everyone knows, you actually prevailed in the election. So then you ascended the board, sworn in January 2018.
Correct.
All right. And then Paul McElhenney was the Ward 3 commissioner at the time. Paul resigned from the board to take a position as the Assistant Public Works Director, created a vacancy, and within 30 days under the statute, the Township had to fill that vacancy.
Right.
So I threw my hat in the ring all of a sudden. Never attended a Township meeting. I used to laugh at the meetings when I watched them on TV, but I grew up in Lower Merion, and I had a strong interest in getting more involved, in all seriousness. And so I interviewed in February for it. The first time I ever met you was that night. I met you in person.
Yep.
You were wearing a Randall Cunningham jersey in celebration of the Eagles' Super Bowl victory.
Yep.
And then you were one of the people who made a terrible decision and voted for me. And then I was on the board, and I ran again. I won it was a difficult campaign. I didn't have an opponent, but it was still difficult to deal with the campaign cycle and go to bed, wake up every night, do things like that.
Yeah.
So, and then that second term I have will be over at the end of this year in December.
Right.
And I'm not running for again. So.
Right. No, and it will be, all joking aside, it will be sad to not have you on the board. I think you have brought a really unique perspective. You've brought a lot to the board. As you said, you're a lifelong resident. You know this township and people in this township better than anyone I've ever met. There's so many times where we're talking about something like, oh, back in 1982, that used to be this, and this is the history of it. And I think that is really helpful. And is that why you ended up wanting to do this job and run for commissioner?
Well, the main thing is really right. I mean, this is why we all do it. It's for the badge, right? And now, I mean, who wouldn't want to have a badge like this? This is the commissioner badge you get. And the nice thing is with this badge, like, I mean, it kind of reminds me a little bit, if you've ever seen the Office episode when they go to Michael Scott's house and he has that really little TV.
Yep.
It might be the smallest badge like imaginable. So I've never flashed this on somebody, like, but maybe tonight's meeting, just go up to someone in the first row. Excuse me, sir, my friend, I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do sometimes.
Yeah.
So
the badge, that's terrific. But in addition to that, yeah, I grew up here. I did leave the area, which I think it's important if you can leave the area a little bit, get a little bit of perspective. And then I came back. I think it's a terrific place to raise a family. And I just had gotten more involved in some local issues, being like a little league coach. I was involved with the local civic. So I thought Paul McElhinney was doing a nice job as a commissioner. And I'm thrilled to be able to host the award-winning Public Works Pipeline show with Paul, who is the really.
Did you say award-winning or award-winning?
It's certainly award-winning.
You won Ward 3, and that was pretty much it, right?
But yeah, I mean, Paul and we are really breaking new ground, I think, with that show and the direction that we're taking it or not taking it. But when Paul ascended to a different position and got a full-time job at the Township, that created a nice opening. And at that point, I thought, oh, this could be really interesting.
Yeah.
And I had known our board president, Todd Sinai, from the Little League community, where a lot of people seem to start. You get more involved in the community with youth coaching. I know you coach, right? Basketball, softball, hockey, right? Yep. It's kind of the same. There's a lot of similarities. You want to get involved in the community, you help your kids out coaching, or you help your kids, your family out with the commissioner stuff. So, when there was the opening, I thought, okay, this will be great. I'll throw my hat in the ring and see if I get it, and if not, I got a crazy family, busy life as a lawyer, and plenty of other problems to deal with anyway. So.
Yeah.
Just took a shot, and 6 years later, I'm kind of still here. Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, glad you are sometimes.
Oh, I didn't even ask you your question. Yeah, about like the experience and stuff.
I don't even remember what I asked.
Yeah.
So long ago.
No, I don't know. Well, yeah, it's like it does help growing up here, but
right.
One of the really nice things about this area too, like once I leave, there'll be no one on the board who is actually from Lower Merion, who's actually born in Lower Merion, and that's a cool thing about the community, because there's other communities you can go in, and damn right, all 9 of those board of supervisors, they're all from pot 10, pot this, or and that's fine to have a couple people like that. But the brain drain you get, or the brains you bring in, and the ideas from other places, I think that's a really cool thing that really helps the community keep developing, and you don't get stale by just having the old curmudgeons. I'm Mike McKeon. I grew up in Penwyn, and we didn't have bicycles like that when I was a kid. So anyway, I think it's nice that we have a lot of folks coming from different places.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it adds new perspectives. I think, and having some people from here and some people not from here and people from all over, really everyone comes in with their own ideas. And, part of the reason we have 14 commissioners is because we overdo everything.
Right.
So but part of the reason we have 14 commissioners is there are different perspectives. And I've been outvoted 13-1 plenty of times where I've been 100% sure that I was right. But I'm not the czar of Lower Merion. I'm not the mayor of Lower Merion. I'm one of 14 commissioners. And when I'm wrong or when I'm outvoted, I'll say, that's part of it, right? And it's important to have those different perspectives.
But I appreciate you sticking to your guns on that, because there'll be a lot of 13-1 votes, and from where you're the one. Sometimes I could see myself being the 13-1, and I'm just like, that's just not worth it. Okay, whatever, because it's just going to go on consent. And do I really need to make a wave here? And maybe that makes me a little wimpy for not doing it sometimes, but.
I don't think that's what makes you wimpy. But no, where I found it's important to do that, and I'll give an example. When I first came on the board, there was a development project, and it was a by right project, and we voted it down.
Right.
And we had no right to vote it down under the law. It was a bad project, and what happened was we ended up having negotiations and getting to a point where I still don't think it was a great project. But it was a better project, and it was better because we stuck to our guns. And if we sit here and just do what we're told to do, then what's the point? What's the point of being here?
And I remember that project well, because I was as a Bala Cynwyd resident, I saw that project through the Civic Association. I thought, this thing's terrible. But you have to appreciate if it's by right, you have to go and eventually it's going to win in court, regardless of what we say. So then I got on the board, and I enthusiastically voted against it.
Right.
I thought, this is great. But then I realized at the same time, and I think we voted down at a committee meeting. By the time Board of Commissioners came, we had to negotiate with them. But I thought it was excellent though. Like you and I and a couple others who we stuck to our guns
Yeah.
on it because the development along City Line Avenue was getting a little
Yep.
bit out of control,
It was.
and that was I thought kind of a shot across the bow of like, we're a little tired of it.
Yeah.
By right, whatever, we'll change the zoning if we have to, and we're willing to stick our neck out and fight at this point.
And I think you're right. I think it set the tone. And I think coming in, a number of us were elected on this kind of backlash against the overdevelopment of residential properties within Lower Merion. And the way I look at things, everything has to be a balance. And I think the balance had shifted too far one way. And a lot of the residents were fed up with it. And the developers were so used to just bringing project, getting it approved, bringing project, getting it approved. And I think it was important for us to set that tone and say, we're not sitting here rubber stamping your projects anymore. And even though we're limited in what we can do, we're not just going to sit back and do whatever you want us to do. We're going to represent our residents, represent their interests. And I think not only for that project, but it did set the tone for other development projects moving forward.
Yeah, and I think some people watching the show may not, to the extent anyone is watching the show, they may not understand.
People watch this show. I know you're used to being on shows that nobody watches. This one's a different story.
But it's very difficult under the law to go and block out a developer on what they can do, what they can't do, and then they can go to court and you can lose there too. So we try with the zoning code to funnel development, encourage it a certain way, and I think what we've done is to really encourage more of a smart development where it's more surgical. And when we got on the board, a lot of the laws that Lower Merion had were very loose. And a lot of them had come from the 2008, 2009, when the housing market busted. We were kind of desperate as a community to...
as everyone was.
To put a shot in the arm and get the development going. Then we show up about 10 years later and we're like, okay,
it's time to tamp it back down. No, I know it's hard to shut them up. Yep. Okay, so I apologize. We are now, we have to go to break, Mike, so it's amazing that we can talk for 12 minutes about nothing, but we did. It's like our own little Seinfeld episode here. But we're going to break, and we will be right back, and hopefully you haven't fallen asleep yet, so we'll see you
12 more minutes of terror.
soon. I truly can't believe you came back for the second half of Beside the Gavel, but thank you for doing so. I'm here with a very special guest, Commissioner Mike McKeon, one of my 13 favorite other commissioners on the board for now. Actually, by the time you see this, Mike will have been voted out of office. Whether he was running or not, I don't think he would be on the board come January. I think that's probably a fair statement, right?
I don't disagree, though. I will note for the record that I did choose not to run for re-election.
That is important.
Yeah, and there, as you know, I think, right, the some reasons that people decide to run or not run. This job takes a lot of time.
It does.
And there is a little bit of a compensation on it's $4,000 a year, but I probably...
Wait, we get paid?
I think I work about 15 hours a week doing the commissioner stuff, and you may do double that.
Easily,
as a board officer and everything, and all the fires you have to put out with the new school, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, and then you have family and work, and it's a lot of stuff to juggle. And so what I looked at it was this is a time in my life where I'm really, I think I'm the busiest. Maybe I'll be a little bit busier later, but I've got 2 daughters, Ava the failure, she's 19, Alyssa the disappointment, she's 21. Sorry, they're great kids. But, and we love our kids. My wife Jen and I, we love our family, we love everybody, everything's great. But we have to work really, really hard as a family. And my job, I have to work really hard in it. And there's a lot of time commitment to it. Yeah. So 6 years of this was very rewarding. But I couldn't sustain 16 years of it or 25 years of it. It's a privilege to do it for 6 years, but there's an opportunity cost involved of like things you may miss out with your family, things you can't do with work. So, but what I think is cool is that we both did this when we were like at our busiest. We weren't, hey, my kids have grown up. My dog just got his master's. I got nothing to do here and everything. So I thought I might stay busy. If what can the township do for me? Can I run for a position? What can I do here to make my life more interesting? And we did it, I think, more on the public service angle, where we're running around like crazy, yet we're still trying to do, what we think is really best for the community. And it's not like I needed any more excitement in my life, right?
Right.
I don't need to get insulted on Wednesday nights in the Board of Commissioners meetings. I could sit at home and get insulted by my daughters and my
rightfully
wife
so.
regularly.
And Ava and Alyssa, if you're watching, and I know you are, those were not on the cue card. That was your dad being your dad. And he's, well, I can't say those words because I guess I'll get beeped out. So sorry about that, and you don't have to watch the rest of this. I'm sure he's just gonna make other stupid comments throughout. And you guys are wonderful, and Jen, you're wonderful, and thank you for sharing Mike with us for these past 6 years, because he really has made a difference in this community. And I think I think, like you alluded to, the reason we do this isn't for the whopping paycheck. It's not even for the badge, as wonderful as having that badge is. It's to make a difference in our community, right? That's why we're doing this. I have 3 young kids, and really to show them that this world is bigger than any of us. I mean, now we're going deep here, but the world's bigger than any of us, and it's our responsibility to give back and not just say, I'm selfish. This is what I need for me. I'm trying to make my community better for my neighbors, and we are taking the time and we're taking it out of our days, but we all have limits, and you can only do so much for so long. And I think it's also important to turnover, right? To have turnover and not have the same thoughts, the same people on the board, the same discussions, the same way of thinking, and get new blood in there and get new ways of thinking. And I know, the election to replace you, to step into your shoes, is an uncontested election. I don't think we can talk about it. I'm not exactly sure how the laws work, because I'm not a lawyer, and I know you're not either. But anyway,
and I think that'll be nice, though, in terms of what you're saying for the turnover. Like I've ruined the community for the last 6 years. Okay, now it's someone else's turn to ruin the community, and after that, it'll be somebody else's turn. And we do get some benefits. So what I'd like to think, I'm walking down Conshohocken State Road, and I see some kid walking the other way, and he goes, "There goes Mike McKeon, best Ward 3 commissioner since Paul McElhenney," right? Or when these little kids come up to me and they ask me to sign their solid waste fee bills for their parents or their tax bill,
or their leaf bag,
and you got a long line of people asking for the autographs and everything. That's rewarding.
The paparazzi does get a little overwhelming sometimes, but
and so when that happened on River Road, right? As I told the police, that was an accident. When that paparazzi car went careening off the road, I did not try to knock them off the road because there were too many speed bumps in the way. We couldn't, we were both going at a very modest and safe pace, and the paparazzi just kind of lost control.
So you've mentioned a couple times Conshohocken State Road, and I think one thing that's interesting about this township is the diversity within the township. So you represent Belmont Hills, right? Which is a unique part of this township with a long history and a unique history. I'm representing Villanova all the way on the other end of the township. Pretty different, right? Pretty different from each other. For those who don't know, who won't venture into Belmont Hills because you're there,
right?
Tell us a little bit about Belmont Hills and kind of what makes that part of the community unique.
No, it's an awesome question, but just take a step back too. So Ward 3, half of it geographically is Penn Valley, but it's not that populated, but it's around Welsh Valley and kind of over Welsh Valley Middle School and over.
Fair.
Then you get all of Belmont Hills is in Ward 3, then Rock Hill Road, and then a little part of College Park, Ballackinwood. So I live in that part of College Park, Ballackinwood. Ward 3 is really like the Belmont Hills ward, but as many people in Belmont Hills often tell me, well, you don't live in Belmont Hills, and that's true. I don't live. I live near it, though.
And producers, if you can just flash his address on the screen, that would be wonderful. We'd appreciate that. Anyway, continue.
Belmont Hills it's a very unique historical area of the community. A lot of the people there lived in very modest homes. They work for the school district. They work for the township. They built a lot of the things around us that became part of the community. And their value, we're like a lot of really what the equity they had was their property. And you could see that these property lines change over time because they'd find a half a lot was for sale or some other little parcel. So the zoning is all crazy from people putting their money back under their property and doing what they could to expand it. And people live there for generations. When we get the deeds list, and I love looking at the deeds list every month because I get to see, is there any township resident who I don't like who moved out of the township, and I just skim down there. But if you look at the deeds list, you see a lot of properties in Belmont Hills that turn over for $1 because it's in the family going from one to the other. So these are people who are really invested in the community. people in Penn Valley, Bala Cynwyd, they may not know who the commissioner is. In Belmont Hills, like they know who the commissioner is. They have a lot of events there. It's really cool because you do have visibility and accountability for things. So when we were doing our new zoning code, people were understandably a little worried because their houses are all in these kind of odd things. It's like, what's going to happen here? Are you going to change my property? And everything's basically grandfathered in. So all the craziness is kind of, which is sort of wonderful in some ways. That's all there. That's Belmont Hills. And so if anybody ever wants, if you haven't been through Belmont Hills, it's the edge of the community. As you get near the Schuylkill, you just kind of get to Belmont Hills and drive down, and that'll take you to the bottom of it. The bottom of Belmont Hills is...
Oh, is that a question?
Yeah,
is at the bottom.
Jones Street, right? And then Needham at the bottom. You could take it kind of turns around. Why were you asking
me that?
You knew Jones.
No, I know. Yeah. But what's you? I thought you were going. I thought you were going for something deep. Like, is the greatest pizza place on the face of the earth? I'm like, where are you going with this? So,
that's just the bottom of.
It's the bottom of it.
But there's all there's a lot of. It's a very neat area, but because it's kind of contained, unless people just are speeding through for one way or another, there's not a lot of. You don't end up randomly in Belmont Hills.
No, but I love the community aspect, right? That it is generation upon generation. It's people who care for each other, who know each other, who really are invested in this community because their grandparents were invested in the community, the parents were invested in the community, and yet they make choices. Well, they make choices like this. So
and they have a Memorial Day event too. In Belmont Hills, it's a very solemn event for the World War I and World War II veterans who died in those wars. And I think there's 16 of them total. And a lot of the names you see, they are still families in the community. So that's one of the great honors. I had to go out and speak and give a speech every year.
Yeah.
This past year, I didn't do that. We hosted the broadcast. It was Mark Mary's avant-garde parade ceremony production thing.
Wasn't that a Charlie Brown? Charlie Brown's avant-garde parade ceremony thing? And I think Mark stole it.
I don't think he has original ideas.
No,
but that's
never.
Just,
no,
I don't know.
Who that guy. How's he still here? It's amazing.
Is he still here?
I have no idea. Anyway, so we only have a couple minutes left, and wanted to talk. Like your tenure, this has felt like an eternity. So just want to, really, we've talked a little bit about platitudes and giving back, but what are some of the things besides like wearing a Star Wars costume on May the 4th that you're really proud of during your time as commissioner here? So. Yeah,
it's almost a little bit of we had a couple Seinfeld jokes, but it was like the commissioner tour sort of about nothing. One thing I actually am kind of proud of it is a lack of things. You become a commissioner and you're looking out for the community, and some of it is you're trying to not have certain things happen. So we had a heck of a lot of development and different things that came along, and I thought this past 5-6 years or so was really a time to kind of pump the brakes on things. And I never cut a ribbon, right, for some project. I'm kind of happy about the fact that, not saying it's a bad thing to cut a ribbon, but we were, it was a quietish kind of thing. And some people feel, I needed to get this park for my legacy. I needed this for my legacy. I don't need something for a legacy, although we are trying to put in the CIP this year a Belmont Hills library project outside for an outdoor patio.
The McKeon Memorial
patio. I don't know if I would go that far, but I mean, so that's a project I'm trying to slide in there. But in all seriousness, I think it's nice when you can look back and say, hey, this building, I got this put up, or I did this. But at the same time, our job isn't necessarily to to have things named after us or to get a certain thing done. It's to represent the residents and do a good job and do what they need, and that can certainly vary.
No, I agree, and I think something going back to what we talked about in the first segment was, there were swings back and forth on the pendulum, and I think what happened before us, there was a big swing towards development, right, coming out of the recession. And I think one thing we did was really stem that tide and came out very strong and put in a new zoning code. And it's funny because I get comments from residents saying, hey, there's still this development happening. And I'm like, yeah, it's residuary, and it still happens because by the time a plan goes in and then it gets approved and then it gets built, it's years.
Oh, yeah, the stuff that I screw up, most people probably won't know about for 5 or 10 years because of everything that's in the pipeline.
Long gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, when you talk about awards and different things you need, like, I don't need to get some award from this job. I think it was Tribe Called Quest said I don't need a statue to tell how nice I am. But it's, you do it for other kind of things. It's a community experience. And also the camaraderie on the board. It's been awesome.
It has been a lot of fun. And I think that's a perfect way to end it because we want to. Right? I think it's time.
Spare your audience.
So thank you very much for joining us at Beside the Gavel. Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure working with you on days where I don't see you. But it's been nice having a non-rivalry in our shows. And don't be a stranger. And I hope we get to host Memorial Day again next year and that you keep coming to meetings and harassing us from the other side of the, whatever that's called, the oval, the other side of the
dais.
Dais, thank you, that's the word. And that's the last word we have. So thanks for joining us on Beside the Gavel, and we'll see you next month.